So, good morning, everybody. Very excited to be here. My name is Victor Danell.
And my name is Jacob Danell.
And we are from Sweden. And we're here to talk about our feature film, The Unthinkable, Sweden's first disaster movie. And since it's Swedish, my guess is that not all of you have heard about it yet. So let's kick this off with the movie's trailer.
Jag har drömt om det här. Men jag trodde aldrig att det skulle hända.
Ännu så länge vet vi inte mer än att det alltså ska ha skett fler explosioner runt om i Stockholm, bland annat just här vid Slussens tunnelbana.
Nästa Cesar här. Vi ser en oidentifierad farkost. Inga tecken på aktivitet. Vi rör oss närmare. Kom.
Thank you.
So this movie is completely edited in Premiere Pro, and all the effects are done in After Effects. And the story is about when Sweden gets under attack. It's a little bit of dark story, as you could see. But to cheer things up, we're now going to show an FX reel on some of the stuff we're going to talk to, and the rest of the movie also. So here's some heated with some funny music.
Thank you. Yeah, as you can see, this 2-hour-long movie has a lot of visual effects. 420 shots to be exactly. And with a total budget of $1.8 million, that's not the VFX budget, that's the budget for the whole movie. I know what you're all thinking. How is this possible? And of course, that's a lot of answers to that question, like keeping the crew small and the use of Adobe softwares. But one thing I know for sure is that we would never been able to pull this off without a heavy use of visual effects. Because when visual effects is used right, it does not only allow you to do spectacular things, but it can also help the production to save a lot of time and money.
So let's break down some of the scenes in this movie. We're going to talk about when we decided to use visual effects and when we decided not to do. Most of the times, it's a mixture between both. So, this scene takes place in central Stockholm, right outside of the government building. It involves a lot of car crashes and explosions, and we knew directly that we would never ever be allowed to film there. But we still wanted to make it feel as real as possible and use as little green screen as possible. So after a lot of discussions, we decided to rent a closed down military airport outside of our hometown, Norrköping in Sweden. And there we bought hundreds of meters of white carpet, cut it into lines, and placed them on the runway to mimic the roads of Stockholm. So by doing so, we could film all the cars and all the crashes, real, integrating with the ground and with the rain. And everything that the viewer is watching is real, and we only needed to replace the background. Now, even though the decision to film everything for real has its benefits, it certainly also has its drawback. For example, you had to roto out each and every frame of the whole shot. And the shot starts with a 2.5 minute single shot inside of a moving car. And if the rotor wasn't enough, you can just imagine the tracking. But in the end, all the time we had to put in was worth it, because when you get those small shakes and bumps from the road and all the light reflecting correctly, it sells the shot.
Yeah, and as you can see, this scene takes place in heavy rain. And the idea was to, and we know that we needed to add most of the rain in post, because we had to change the background. And the idea was to shoot real water against black and just add it with a simple blending mode in After Effects. And it worked quite well, but for the raindrops on the windshield, things got a little bit more complicated. In order to sell the shot, we figured that we need the drops to reflect the surroundings in a more complicated way. And we thought, okay, this is never going to, we are never going to do this in After Effects. We need to do it in some kind of 3D program, a process that would have taken a lot more time than planned. But then, like many times before, we were saved by Video Copilot, which released a tutorial called Realistic Raindrop Effects, 100% in After Effects, just in time for us to use. And inspired by Mr. Kramer's way to use CC glass, the built-in effect in After Effects, we created realistic reflections with the raindrops. So we built a project where we could inject a mix of real and simulated raindrops and have it reflect both the real and the digital surroundings outside the car. And the most awesome thing by doing this, doing it all in After Effects, is that we could update and change the background again and again without the need of re-render the rain in some kind of other program, which probably saved us a lot of time and, of course, money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Another important thing about making the effects look very real was to work in 32-bit, but also in the ACES color space. This movie was shot on the Sony FS7 using S-Log3, so we converted that to ACES, so we could get much more realistic effects like glow and blurs. And to quickly explain what the ACES color space does, it takes your footage and pulls it out to the real life values of the brightness and darkness. And with that, we could get beautiful bokehs on the headlight. But also, if you look in the far distance, you can see that the light from the sky eats into the darkness. And when we found this, it was like a real eye-opener on like, okay, so this is how you do. Afterwards, we converted back to S-Log3 and just sent it out to grade. But speaking about lens blur, we early on decided to shoot the whole movie on old Soviet lenses.
And this is the whole set. It's, I think the whole set was about $700, including the case. So it was a really cheap set of lenses, but they have a lovely character.
Yeah.
And it's quite sharp too. Yeah.
And to push it even further, we decided to put a small piece of paper inside each and every lens, shaped as an oval, to mimic the anamorphic looks of very expensive lenses.
Yeah.
And these lenses, as said, has a lot of characteristics and that we had to mimic inside of After Effects. One of the effects is so-called cat's eye effect that you can get from these kind of lenses that you can see on the light down here. And the cat eye effect is that the shape of the bokeh changes depending on where it is in the image. And this was something very difficult to solve, and we even tried to make our own plugin to do it. But we ended up contacting Frischluft, that, if you ask me, makes one of the best depth of field plugins on the market. And they were nice enough to help us and made a custom version of their plugin that could mimic our lenses exactly. So with that, I had to build a LED grid on cardboard to be able to get those kind of bokeh shapes. And we just fed that into the plugin. And it might have looked stupid while we did it, but the result was better than what we could ever expect.
Yeah, so back to the scene in Stockholm. In the final shot, we blew up the government building.
Of course.
Yeah. The idea was to just glimpse the destruction through the windshield and the raindrops, both for the emotional impact it would give, but also because we knew our limitations of how detailed we could make the effect look. Because we didn't have time to do the destruction all in 3D, and we couldn't afford to do a full-scale miniature of the whole building. So what to do? The solution we came up with was to only build a small part of the wall, and instead of using real explosives, which would have destroyed the miniature in one take, we built an air cannon out of cheap air compressors and blew a mix of dirt and debris through the wall with a strong backlight to mimic the fire. And when we had the shot, we just rebuilt the wall, moved it a little bit, and blew it up again. And by doing so, the final comp was quite easy to do. We just added the place of the explosions over a still frame of the building, added the rain and the raindrop effect over top of that, and the final shot was done. And here you can see the benefits of working in 32-bit and how the fire is picked up on the raindrops, and the blur effect is working really realistic.
Everything inside of After Effects.
Yeah.
Yeah. But all the effects aren't car crashes and explosions. But by thinking about VFX as a tool on set, we decided things on set that saved a lot of time and money for the future. For example, we decided to have the microphone in the shots very much, because then we could get good and crisp sounds in set instead of doing ADR sessions afterwards. And it didn't take more than 1 or 2 days to do the whole movie.
And paint out the microphones, yeah.
Yeah, to paint out the microphones, yeah.
Yeah. So let's jump to one of the shootouts in the movie. The plan was to shoot blanks for real, to have the light from the muzzle flashes interact with the surroundings. But after the first day of shooting blanks, we realized that this is never going to work. The time for the reloads and the safety just took too much time for us, and we were not able to put the actors or the camera where we wanted.
So the solution, once again, was a mixture between VFX and SFX. What we did was, in the front of the muzzle, we added a small but extremely bright LED, and I actually have this LED with me. So it's extremely small, but extremely bright. So this is a very lit up place, but it still lights up a lot. So we just, whoops.
Now it's broken.
Yeah, nah. We just connected this through the muzzle to the trigger of the gun and fired off. And the actors could run around, do whatever they wanted, doesn't need to think about safety. And all the other characters had something to play upon. And it's really cheap, like these are $2 each, normal cable, ADSL connector. So that's something from your hardware store, wherever. So this is me modifying all the guns, and yes, that is our mother helping out. So it's a great way to combine work and family time. The only thing we needed to add in post was the muzzle flashes and some smoke. And to get these elements and all the other elements from for the movie, we rented a black hangar that we shot like rain and fire, ricochets and smoke, and even a swan. And the combination of well thought out effects on set with a combination of real elements shot for the purpose of these shots, we could very easily get to a very realistic comp. And the results are extremely believable.
Lastly, we're going to talk about the movie's final action sequence, which forced us to use every trick in the book to pull off. In this scene, it's very dark, I hope you can see. In this scene, one of our main characters are flying his small airplane and are being chased by a big helicopter. And as you know, making flying objects, faking flying objects, is one of the hardest things to do because it has nothing to interact with. So we figured, what can it react to for real on set? Yeah, we can make it interact with our lenses and make lens flares and stuff like that. Maybe that's a thing we could use to sell the shot.
And the solution, once again, was the LEDs. So we bought an 1,500 lume head strap, mounted it on our drone, and just flew it wherever the helicopter was supposed to be. So the lamp acted as the helicopter's flashlight, and it helped for the camera and for the actor to see where the helicopter is supposed to be. And in post, we just tracked the helicopter onto the center of the flare and hit it behind the flare. And it wasn't that much more work needed to be done, as the majority, once again, that the viewer is seeing is something optically real, shot directly onto the camera. Towards the end, we also have a helicopter crashing through a church. We decided early on we wanted to do this for real and not in visual effects. So we built miniatures in a 1:8 scale of the church and of the helicopter that we later just rammed through the church. Because of budget restraints, our production designer didn't have that big of a team and didn't have that much time to try things out before the real shot was happening. And of course, the shot didn't end up the way we wanted. So we just had to rebuild everything again. Part of working with miniatures. But in the end, we still saved a bunch of time because when the shot was done, we just added it into Premiere and we're done.
Yes, and that's all we had time for today to talk about. We could have talked about for a week about all the effects we've done for
Totally.
this movie, but we'd like to thank Adobe for letting us speak here at IBC, and thanks for doing such great software for us to play with.
And thank you all for listening.
Yeah, so thanks, bye.
Yeah, thanks. And if you have any questions, we're going to be next to the stage for a while, so come and ask us anything.
Yes.